Welcome, everyone. We are back at Earthy Serves More Than a Day. My name is Isabel Carrera Zamanillo, and I work for Front and Centered, one of the partners in this week full of activities. And we hope you can join us today and through the rest of the week throughout a plethora of amazing events. We have coming some podcasts, as well as we will have coming on the front lines activism and the urgency of the story, as well as at 3 p.m. We are going to have a wonderful interview with Tony and a special guest talking about agroecology. And today in the afternoon, we are going to have the chance to look, thanks to the Social Justice Film Institute, the documentary Necessity, Climate Justice in the Thin Green Line. But today, this panel will be focusing on EJ across borders. And I have the honor to be joined by two extraordinary friends and women who work together with many organizations in the front line of social justice, environmental justice, and climate justice. You might be wondering why we are talking about EJ across borders. Well, I want to mention that a little bit of my story. I'm a migrant, and I come from a family of migrants. And as many millions of people around the world, I left my family, my land, and all what I knew back in Mexico. And I came to the United States looking for an opportunity. Around the world, millions of people have to leave what they remember, their memories, their connection to land, to friends, to family, just looking for jobs, for opportunities to thrive. With the migrants, many from Latin America use the metaphor of the monarch butterfly going looking for opportunities to thrive. However, in that journey, it's not that we are just leaving behind those histories. We look to reconnect and create new roots wherever we're established. So today, I have again two friends joining me. So I'm going to give the microphone to Karin Columba. Bienvenida, Karin. Welcome, Karin. If you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, Isabel, and hi, everyone. Thank you for having us. It's an honor to be your guest today and to celebrate the Day of the Earth together. So, well, my name is Karin Columba. I am also a migrant in the United States. I am originally from Bolivia, and I have been working for 25 years in Latin America, especially in the Andean region, in environmental conservation and sustainable development sectors. I hold a master degree in planning and environment and a bachelor in agricultural business administration. And my passion is strategic planning and monitoring evaluation and capacity building of organizations. I am the executive director of One Equal Heart Foundation, and I am serving the organization since 2019. And One Equal Heart is a small foundation that collaborates with indigenous peoples in Chiapas, Mexico, supporting their efforts and initiatives to live in their lands, to live well according to their priorities, and developing their abilities and knowledge. And I can talk I would love to talk more about that after the introduction of my colleague from Los Angeles.
Hi, Jennifer. Jennifer Adams from Nuestra Casa, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yes, hola. My name is Jennifer Adams. I'm so happy to be here. Muchas gracias for inviting me. I am the Environmental Justice Program Manager at Nuestra Casa de East Palo Alto in San Mateo County here in the Bay Area of California. I've been with the organizations since 2022, so just a little over a year now. And Nuestra Casa started as a small grassroots organization in 2002 to really serve the needs of the growing Latino community that was migrating into East Palo Alto. Now we do serve the whole Mid-Peninsula region, and the work that I do, focusing on environmental justice is really having the community, right, advocate and empower their voices to really share their already issues that they know that they're having, but really try to push to let them know that those are things that are injustices that have happened to them because of potentially redlining. We deal with a lot of our Latinx community, and we have a lot of immigrants, undocumented. And a lot of times they just don't know their rights, or they just don't want to speak up. And we really want to try to empower and advocate for our community to do so. I've been in the nonprofit world since 2016, started off working at Latino Outdoors, really connecting the community to open spaces. That really did think me back when I was a kid growing up. My mom is also from Mexico. She's from Durango. And anytime that we would go out for a walk, porque no manejaba, she didn't drive, she always tried to connect to the land, right? She always would say, oh, mira estas florecitas, it reminds me of Durango. And then she'd go on with the story, right? And that would go on, any time that she could remember home. And that was something that I brought with me in the work that I did at Latino Outdoors, is really just trying to connect people to the spaces that they are in now, right? So people do have to, for whatever reason, right, leave their home country, leave their homeland, leave that connection, but they can learn to find a connection here, right? Even if it's unas florecitas that remind you of home and have that connection. And that's kind of what I brought in with working here at Nuestra Casa, was really just connecting with communities and making them feel that that it is their home, right? And that they can advocate and really push for these issues, and that their voices do matter, regardless of their status, or if they, were born or grew up here. That's really a lot of the work that I do at Nuestra Casa. I'm just so excited to continue this conversation with both my colleagues.
Thank you very much. And as you can see, viewers, whoever is joining us today, and hopefully in the future, because we're recording this conversation will be focused on the West Coast. And why the West Coast? Well, traditionally and for centuries, there have been migration north to south. And currently, in the past 2 centuries, there has been a great migration south to north to the United States. And especially the West Coast is known as a migrant corridor. Consider that the United States, California, Oregon, and Washington produce a lot of the food that is eaten here in the United States as well as around the world. And many of people who work on the farms growing that food come from Latin America. And this means indigenous peoples as well as mixed race and Latinx. So today we are going to connect two organizations, one in California and one in Chiapas. Usually Mexicans, we say that la frontera nos cruzó, the border crossed us, because the borders, geographical and political borders, have been created after, and many times they don't recognize the connections across communities. So today we're going to jump those borders to join virtually to Chiapas and California, and to Seattle, and here in Washington, where we are doing this kind of event. But to continue with this conversation, I would like to ask you, Jennifer, how would you define environmental justice and or social justice through your work?
Yeah, like I mentioned a little bit in my introduction, I think it's really, finding these issues that our community are already aware of, right? Sometimes just feeling like, oh, you know what, my breathing is always bad. I don't feel well. knowing that they know that there's issues with themselves, or maybe where they live at, but really trying to empower them and use their voices, right, to advocate for these issues. I think that was one thing with one of our projects that really spoke to me when I learned about Nuestra Casa was our Environmental Justice Academy. It really empowers our community, our very diverse community, because we don't just serve our Latinx community anymore. We have a very big, broad group of community members that we serve. And we created an academy to empower our communities of environmental justice issues, not just here locally in the Bay Area, but also worldwide. And, one starting with water quality, right? Your drinking water, and that's a big issue that communities in East Palo Alto face of not feeling safe in the water that they drink. So I think it's really speaking on empowering our community. And we've seen that with the academy, that students learn, they have to think about a project that really would bring them, that they really resonated with. And then this past year, we actually were fortunate enough to get a grant for some of those students to actually implement those projects. And so to see those happening in the community was just so amazing. I can highlight one of our students was really into emergency preparedness, because in our communities, we deal a lot with flooding, sea level rise, air pollution, and she really wanted to make sure our community knew how to respond in these cases. And we saw that in January when flooding happened again. And she provided 2 workshops for our communities, and was able to really share some of that research, that just knowledge, and then also provide some starting for emergency kits, so that people can have a sense of like where to start when they come back home, now that they have this knowledge. And so that's some of the work that we do. And I think just with social justice too, right? I think it's just connecting, right? Connecting, validating people's feelings, right? Letting them know that is, that it's something that it's really happening to them. And we do that a lot with the promotoras that we have in our community. They are of our community and serve our community. And it's just really making sure the community feels that they're being heard.
Thank you, Jennifer. And what I'm hearing is these communities already have the power and the knowledge, but it's creating these spaces to highlight that power and knowledge and bringing them together, so to create things that are even bigger or as impactful as this emergency preparedness that I'm sure made a difference this past January. Karin, do you want to share a little bit more about how does social justice and environmental justice look like through your work?
Yes. Well, actually, we support indigenous peoples in Chiapas, Mexico. So our lens are through indigenous peoples. So social justice for us is the right of these communities to live according to their decisions, their priorities on their lands, on their territories, and maintaining their livelihoods and their identity and cultural practices. And also we recognize that they have the right of interacting with the outside world to the extent they want. In that, with that philosophy, with that approach, One Equal Heart Foundation support programs on food security, women's rights, entrepreneurship, water and sanitation, and strengthening language and culture of indigenous communities in Chiapas. We fund these projects, so our approach is to work with local partner organizations, Mexican organizations that share our values and principles, to listen to communities and to work shoulder to shoulder with them, And I can share, I would love to share with you some of the examples that we have working on the field. So for example, we support since 2015 the creation and the developing of the community, indigenous community radio that is called Aklekil Kop. It's a Celtal community radio, and this station broadcasts 24/7, serving an audience of 40,000 people in the region, in the Chiapas region, but also Celtal people that are migrants in other states of Mexico, or some of them in the United States. So this radio was created because the community, the rural communities, the indigenous communities are spread out and geographically isolated in the rural area. So local people have difficulty getting news and information, and their access to media is very limited, you know. So something that indigenous communities thought in some point in 2013 was how we can advance our rights to keep living with our identity and our cultural practices, you know. So they created this platform of information, no, to educate, connect, and inform Celtal people in their own language. And something particular and very important for in terms of social justice is that in 2020, and a small group of women started to work with the Celtal radio, but women in rural communities and in indigenous communities, they really struggle about their rights and about the patriarchal culture where they live. So for these women, it was a big step to join the radio and to start this idea to be broadcasters. Now this small group has grew up, and now they are 29 women. They are running two weekly programs. That one is called Women Blossoming, and the other is Voice of the Girl. And what they say about this program, so I have some testimonies of them. So, for example, they say that they have learned to express themselves and talk about the injustice that surround them. Or, for example, as broadcasters, no, they have the freedom to go beyond their communities and not live anymore in isolation. And other quote of them is, when women listen to us, they heal their wounds and pain. We help open their eyes. So this is the kind of projects that we support. And I can talk a little more later.
Yes. If you want a couple of more minutes before I come and share some ideas of what I'm hearing from you.
Yes, well, other great example about how we practice and support social justice in our work is, for example, we have another project that we support with 150 Celtal women that they are working to build gender equity and economic autonomy in their families and in their communities. And this project started with a very interesting story, because the team who leads the project are two men, and they used to work with men in improving the agricultural practices of their lands. But in some point in 2019, we had an evaluation of their project, and the question that we work with them was where you can impact more in these communities, and they answer, well, we can work with women that they are at homes, they are in a position of big disadvantage. So this small team of men started to learn about feminine studies and about gender equity, that is something that is not common in the deep rural Mexico, and in Chiapas, that is a state with high levels of poverty and discrimination. So this group has developed their, this small team who leads the project has developed their knowledge and their experience working with women. And now these 150 Celta women are learning to grow vegetables, to raise chickens, and they have been creating micro enterprises like kitchen businesses, and they earn and save money, and that for them is a big difference, because these women face considerable challenges around access money. No, the usual habit in these communities is that male partners often spend the money they earn, and they leave their families with a small amount for food or medicines or basic supplies. So women have to basically make up about those needs. With these new skills, women in their communities are learning how to develop their economic autonomy, and this is a big change for them. And I want to share with you a quote of them. They say, in my community, only men have the right to leave home to work or study. And now I am learning that we women have the same rights. When we make bread with other women in my group and sell it, I feel I am making my right to paid work a reality. Now I decide what to do with my money. And this is a quote of Imelda Gutierrez from the community of Canja, where she realized that participating in this project is transforming her life.
And what I'm hearing is that environmental justice and climate justice is really about social justice. It's about those rights. It doesn't matter if you're an immigrant or if you're in your land. It's about that sovereignty, about that capacity to make your decisions about not just your resources, but maybe the resources for your family, without having to have to be imposed by a system. It's about identity. It's about culture. And I think that that's very important because here, Nuestra Casa is the settings are more urban, right? The families live more in urban or semi-urban areas, while One Equal Heart is supporting indigenous communities in rural Chiapas. But they have common things. For example, access to drinking water, access to food that it's meaningful, nutritious for their families, not just food security, but also food sovereignty. Um, we're talking about what to do when there's a disaster, and climate change is bringing more and more those disasters, those climate hazards, and that preparedness, right? So the fact that you both are supporting this different, but at the same point, connected communities that are sharing some even values and some of the same challenges is very impressive, and I think that it speaks a lot about what is happening around the globe around climate justice and environmental justice. So I'm grateful for this, and I would like to know a little bit more about what you do and the kind of challenges and maybe triumphs you look into your everyday work, because I'm sure that especially small organizations, it's difficult sometimes. Jennifer, you mentioned getting a grant for the academy, EJ Academy. So I know that sometimes funding is it could be an issue, and that can translate even in personal, having enough people in the organization to do the work. And I'm looking into Karin, who I know wears all the hats in One Equal Heart. But as I'm preparing for to hear more about your responses, we are going to go into a short commercial break. Um, just because this is also part of Rainier Avenue Radio. So let's go to a commercial break and we'll be back in 3 minutes.
I'm Paul Pearson, host of Star Time, and this is my real voice. Honest, you're hearing it on Rainier Avenue Radio .world.
Should have told her you were sorry.
Are you nerdy by nature? The Crosscut Ideas Festival is back with captivating conversations to quench your curiosity. Explore issues in science, health, culture, and politics with thought leaders and innovators like Ibram X. Kendi, Audie Cornish, Eric Holder, John Quillen Hill, Andrew Yang, and more. April 29th to May 6th at the Amazon Meeting Center in downtown Seattle. It's the Crosscut Ideas Festival, where curiosity and discovery connect. Get your tickets at crosscut.com/festival.
What's up, everyone? It's your girl, Queen Bree, inviting you to come join me on Clean Greens Living. Broadcasted Tuesdays, 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, live right here on Rainier Avenue Radio. On Clean Greens Living, we talk farming, community, and ways to being healthy. So come join me and let's discuss ways to create a healthier you and a healthier community.
Mga kaibigan, ito po si Kuya Bert Kawili.
And this is Miles Salvador from Australia.
And I'm Norb Kawili, also known as Norbcam.
Kung gusto niyo po ang latest news and events from the Philippines at the local Filipino community, Phil-Am Radio po.
We play Filipino music and interview guests from all around the world.
And I'll keep you updated on the latest Seahawks and sports news.
Kaya always tune in, Phil-Am Radio every Tuesday, 1 to 2:30 p.m. Pacific Time on Rainier Avenue Radio .world.
And in YouTube and Facebook. Salamat po.
Generational wealth. Generational wealth. Generational wealth. What is generational wealth? We asked our communities, and this is what they
generational wealth. As of right now, it feels very inequitable given the identities that you have versus if you are a person of color or not. To me, for this generation, I'm going to have to work really, really hard for intergenerational wealth to develop, especially with the economic system that Seattle's in right now, more than ever. Having been a Seattleite as well, I hope that we can talk about it more. And glad that this conversation is starting and to consider thinking about it more as a person of color and coming from an immigrant background as well.
This campaign to create awareness to generational wealth is brought to you by the Department of Neighborhood's Generational Wealth Initiative, the Washington Housing Finance Commission, and Rainier Avenue Radio.org. Create your generational wealth for you and the future of your families.
Here with the Rainier Avenue Radio Traffic Update. You can listen to us in your car 24/7 anytime by downloading the free TuneIn app. Once you do, search Rainier Avenue Radio. And remember, do not curse out your fellow drivers. This has been your Rainier Avenue Radio Traffic Update.
And we're back here in Earth Deserves More Than a Day in this amazing channel, EJ Across Borders. And I'm joined by Karin Columba from One Equal Heart Foundation and Jennifer Adams from Nuestra Casa in California. So before the break, we were talking about some of the challenges and triumphs that maybe you at a personal, but also as an organization you have faced. So Jennifer, I don't know if you want to share some of those.
Thank you. And I think this could also speak a little bit of what Karin was talking about, how like empowering women, right, in the work that she does. And this was something when I started at Nuestra Casa that I, was learning about the heart of our organization, and that is our promotoras. I talked a little bit about them in the beginning in our intro, and that program, is not something that we came up with, right? It's been around for many, many years, and it really is just empowering the community, right, to use their voice, to advocate. They really understand the community, so they can share information. They can, they can bring back things to the organization to really make sure, right, that we are in line with what the community needs are. And I think that's what has made Nuestra Casa very successful. It is a program that really has helped us learn what our community needs. So I know that we, didn't have like a food recovery program, and we knew that with a lot of issues, especially with COVID, that communities were really in need. And so like we in 2021 started our food recovery program, which I know we talked a little bit about food sovereignty, right, and having healthy food. And that's something that our program is a little bit different, right? It brings food to our community instead of our community having to come to us to find food. And it kind of rotates throughout different regions in our Mid-Peninsula to make sure that our community needs are being served in one way, right, with social justice there. But really, our promotoras are the ones that were listening to the community and sharing, right, about initially the way that Nuestra Casa started environmental justice was because the community was voicing their concerns with their water in East Palo Alto. And that really made us know that this was a place that we needed to step into as an organization, because it wasn't how we were founded. We were founded as a very small grassroots organization providing like tutoring and learning opportunities for our community and like English as a second language. And we really have grown more because of that heart of our organization, our promotoras. And I think that is something that when I came into this organization that I've learned also in the past is really listening to our community, right? Taking a step back and allowing to listen to those needs. And also, I think that also helps the community feel like their voices matter, right? That they're advocating for themselves, and that we as an organization are taking that and then making steps to do action, right? One, to bring our community along with us always, but also to, in a bigger sense, like how can we potentially push for policy, and how can we potentially show data, right? Because a lot of times that's what causes, make someone to actually make a change is data, right? And I think that's really the model that we did with our water work, was really collecting surveys initially and then actual data on the water. And then that's really just progressed now to, a whole different a shift into what we thought our water issues were in East Palo Alto. And that's kind of what happened with our Environmental Justice Academy also, right? we're always wanting to make sure that our programs are meaningful, that they connecting with the community. And we were lucky to have a fellow evaluate our academy this past summer and really get a sense of what is working, what is not, where can we do better, and really taking that community's voice, right? Our students who took these courses and learn from it and make it better. And that's what, when I started, was working on, was really learning, taking that evaluation and seeing, okay, what more does our community need, right? And so we're building an alumni network because community is so important. I've learned that in the work that I do with Latino Outdoors, and just for my personal self too, right? Having a sense of community makes a big difference, especially if you come from a diverse background, maybe, and you maybe didn't have a connection to your culture or people like you. And I know for me, that has really helped with like building that sense of community within like-minded people, people with the same cultural background, people that are diverse. And I've seen a big shift in that. Community members really appreciate, right, that we're continuing to support them, continuing to share resources after they completed this academy. We are now also changing our academy a little to make sure that it is meeting the needs of the community, one, as an equitable, right? Making sure that there's flexibility in that program. So providing a hybrid model, having some virtual classes that they can also take with a little bit more time, and then meeting in person, because we know that sometimes that one-on-one connection with a human being in person, right, is it's so valuable, and not just always meeting virtually with students, especially when you're in the same community, right? Taking them out also to connecting to the spaces, which we kind of talked a little bit about, actually taking them out to where maybe there's an issue with sea level rise, because sometimes our community has never actually maybe been to those areas and can't make those connections. So that's a little bit of the work that we're doing. We're really excited. And I know that this, I've kind of tried to dive really deep into the community here in San Mateo County, because I'm originally from Santa Clara County. It's just a county away, but it's such a big difference, right? The needs are different. The issues that they're dealing with are different. And so I really made sure to attend any meeting that I could, any community meetings, really just to let community members know that I'm there. And now it's so lovely when I go somewhere, they're like, oh, Jennifer, ¿cómo estás? Muy gusto que estás ahora con nosotros anoche, right? And you become part of that community. And I think that really makes a difference. And, I could talk a little bit more about too, some of the other work that we're doing, but community also is just the others that are serving in your community too. So I think that has also really just, for me, allowed me to connect with others doing the same work and seeing how we can work together. But yeah, I think that's a really big triumph for us this year. And we really hope that our academy will, this new 2.0 version, right, will really, the students will, not that it wasn't powerful, but a lot of times when we share too much information at once, can be very overwhelming. So we hope that this could be helpful for our students to just really attain the really, crucial information that as of now, right, is really affecting them locally, and then potentially providing workshops in the future for things globally and otherwise, just kind of adding to that. So yeah, I think that's a triumph for me right now, personally too, and work-wise at Nuestra Casa.
Yeah, no, it sounds amazing. I think that just keeping that close connection to the community and serving the community, either through promotoras or through the academy, which, by the way, it's intergenerational. It's not just like young students. It's like people from all ages participating. It's something very important. But for those who might not be familiar with San Mateo or East Palo Alto, you mentioned in your introduction the policies of redlining. And I don't know if you want to share a little bit why these communities are being impacted so dramatically by environmental injustices. For example, in difference from Palo Alto, which is a more privileged area.
Yeah, great question. So I can share that our community in East Palo Alto, right, was unincorporated until the 1980s. So what that means is that the county had a say to what happened to that community. The people had no say. So this allowed toxic waste sites to be, allowed into East Palo Alto. This allowed for their infrastructure, right, not to be improved on like Palo Alto has, right? So it, and then also with redlining, right, it really, it all started, with kind of trying to push certain communities out of certain spaces and saying that this is a space where you can be, right? It started, unfortunately, with Japanese, right, in America during a time that, still happening today with different races, right? And then it shifted to our African American community. And then because rising of prices went up, it shifted then to our Latinx community, making East Palo Alto a home too. So infrastructure is a big issue. Having toxic sites, not having years of funding coming into your community has really brought East Palo Alto and even our other community, North Fair Oaks, who still is actually unincorporated, and their concerns too with like, they really don't have a voice, right? They really don't have like a city that they can manage and run and obtain all these infrastructures. We have infrastructures falling apart in East Palo Alto. I mean, we're pushing for those new like pipes, right, so that water can go through these pipes, but it's going to take time. It's going to take generations, right, to undo these injustices that happen to these communities. And so I think that's why a lot of people are very surprised when they think, oh, this is happening in the Bay Area, like it's such the tech, tech area of the world, right? But that history is really important to know, that because communities had no say, right, and others could come in and do as they please in these communities, that our communities are still being affected today.
Yeah, no, and that speaks a lot, because also the history of Silicon Valley, before they were orchards and there were farm workers in there and they were displaced, and then the encampments for Japanese in the World War II. So knowing the history of the place, I think you're touching into a very important point. Karin, I don't know if some of these challenges resonate with what you face at One Equal Heart, or if you face other kind of challenges, but if also you want to talk about any other triumphs as well. There are challenges, but there are also the bright side, the triumphs.
Yeah. So I was thinking that Jennifer was talking about the challenges that the indigenous communities have in Chiapas, but it's a big surprise that happened in the Bay Area. Well, we have a little different challenges as a grant making organization, and in a smaller scale, but we fund projects, so we don't implement the project, so we work through Mexican local organizations. So I am going to talk about the good things and the successful things first. So despite the pandemic in the last 3 years, we grew in terms of new partnerships and with local organizations. We used to work only with 2 or 3 organizations in the region, but now we are working through 6 organizations, and we are going to have 1 more this year. And other area that we developed and it turned out very well was the collaboration between organizations. So, for example, we identified that the women empowerment and women rights is something that it should be transversal. I mean, it should be taking for all the organizations in their work, but as expanders, we are not on the field day to day. So we invited our partner organizations to learn about this approach and this skill, and we provide consulting services of experts in gender equity. And our partners have a really good response and very open mind, and the willingness to learn and to improve their work with the community. So, for example, now most of them are with this support in gender equity, and also they have been sharing their strengthens. For example, we work with Cántaro Azul, that is a organization specialized in wash, sanitation and water. So they are supporting the group that works with indigenous women, and because most of the communities have troubles with access to water. And other subjects. So in the same way, for example, one of the groups is specialized and use better techniques in vegetables, how to grow vegetables and agricultural skills. So they are teaching their skills to other groups. So that part of capacity building of the strengths of the organizations are working pretty well, and we are very grateful that and honored that the organizations we work with in Chiapas are really amazing. They are very committed with what they do. But also the challenges that we face is like a small organization. During this period of the pandemic, the recruitment to complete our team, it was basically impossible. No, and so we are keeping a small. We are a small team, and we work in everything with different hats all the time. So sometimes we are almost drowning in the waters. No, but yeah, that has been a challenge for us. And also, I would say that the imbalance between fundraising and communications and to support the day-to-day workload is very complicated for us. But I mean, the results that and the positive effects that our work has on the ground is what motivate me and what motivate our small team.
Thank you very much for sharing, Karin, because what I'm seeing is two wonderful women who have an extraordinary team, but that are putting their heart and their soul for the communities and bringing a sense of community. And it's very important. Jennifer, you were mentioning how these structural inequities in Silicon Valley had led to these imbalances even in infrastructure. Well, the fact is that Chiapas, even being one of the most biodiverse states in Mexico, they had the highest poverty rates. And the fact is that many indigenous communities there receive land from the government, but without access to any services. So I like that triumph of bringing organizations who are local, even though Chiapas is a big state. You can imagine mountains and going from one rural place to the other, connecting between themselves to collaborate and work together. And then this brings me to my last question of this panel. How do you envision collaborating with other individuals or maybe organizations? And how would you invite people to get more involved with your organization? So Jennifer, if you want to start.
Yeah, thank you. And I think this could also touch on what Karin was talking about was, sometimes, right, we take on more work sometimes than we can handle because we are passionate about this work. And I think for us in the work that we do, and from what I've learned working in other nonprofits, is that collaboration is really important with other organizations, really honing what you're good at and working with other, like local CBOs to really amplify and strengthen us together to really make an impact in our community is really, really important in the nonprofit world, right? Because funding is an issue, sometimes capacity building, right, is an issue. And it's hard for us to sometimes become experts, right, at a new thing very quickly to turn around and provide, that support to our community. And I think that's something that in the past I've heard have been like people work in silos, right? They have their own little niche and they do their work, and because applying for grants, getting funds, getting foundations to see you, you're kind of, we think that we're working against each other, right, to get that funding, but really it is thinking, well, this funding is for our communities, right? And so how can we strengthen ourselves together to make a bigger impact? And that's something that we're doing at Nuestra Casa with a lot of our local partners. One, for example, right now, which we're really excited about, was that we're working with another local organization called Climate Community Resilience. We've partnered with them with a lot of things, just like collaboration-wise or like on contracts, but we applied for our first grant together. And it was actually a big grant. So it was an EPA grant, so federal government grant, and it's around air quality. They were doing some work on air quality already. And, we've learned that air quality is an issue for our community. And we learned, okay, well, let's put both of our skills together and put this grant that maybe we wouldn't be able to take on by ourselves as an organization, but could bring a lot of money into our communities, right? And making sure, right, that funding is really mostly going to get funneled to the communities with ways of getting, air purifiers, right? Because we can't really say, okay, we're going to, get this funding and like that, we're going to solve all the air pollution and air quality issues in our community, right? So really trying to empower our community to say, okay, here's some things that can help, right, temporarily in your homes. Here is some information, right, informing our community to say these are things that will make your air quality at home bad compared to potentially even outside. But then really also empowering our community. So we'll have leaders doing and being ambassadors, sharing out this information once they learn about it. We'll have community members do a community research. So they'll actually go out and check and with handheld air quality devices to say, okay, how's the air quality outside compared to maybe inside here? And they will be the ones, finding hotspots in our communities to say, this is where we found, this is the data, right? Because data is always so important, but it's our community collecting that data to say, these are where we're finding that air quality is an issue. And then the step forward on top of that we'll do is we'll actually set up monitoring stations, air quality monitors that go outside to really collect more of that data to let our, policymakers know, hey, our air quality in our communities is actually different than the main sensor that is collecting that data, right? So really then trying to push for that policy change to potentially affect how development happens in our community, right? Because gentrification is a big thing in our frontline communities, as we call them, the ones that are really affected by climate change the most, outside of, everyone else in the Bay Area, our frontline communities, and to really show like, hey, development, right? It has to be done a different way. How traffic, goes through needs to be done a different way. I know we're pushing for cleaner air with removing certain, things like gas stoves, gas heaters in our homes, right? But that's also an inequity because a lot of our community are renters. And their concern always when something, an improvement happens in their community is, how is this going to affect me now? It's going to increase my rent. Regardless of seeing it being as a positive thing, like, oh wow, we're going to get new street lights, we're going to get a new crossing for us to cross safely by the train station. It's like, this is now going to affect me and my rent is going to increase. So really empowering our communities by working together and not being in silos, I think really allows us we make more of an impact together. And that's really why, for me, it's important to making sure to build those relationships, build those connections, and seeing like, hey, you're doing this, we're doing this. Why don't we come together and maybe work on something together to kind of move forward? And so we hope that we get this grant right, because now it has 2 community partners working together, and can really make more of an impact than maybe just one CBO, one community-based organization could have applied for. And so we hope that for us, right, is a learning moving forward, that sometimes being together is better, and will make more of an impact in our community.
Wishing you the best with that grant. Hopefully you get it. And what about you, Karin? What do you envision about collaborations with other organizations or individuals?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say that a challenge and something that we should pay more attention is to build a community between small and medium foundations or grant makers, because what I feel and notice here in the Seattle Grand Area region is that there are the big foundations and the other small organizations like us that we are totally, we work in different contexts, but there is a gap about that. And I think there are the opportunities to learn from each other, but there are no many opportunities, especially, during the pandemic. We have some Zooms, meetings and video calls, but definitely something that we should pay attention to build together. And other area that is not totally included is the collaboration between universities and organizations like us, for example, that we have opportunities on the ground for different topics to develop research and to help our partner organizations in Mexico, but also to help us to have a better approach in different topics, no? And we did some efforts about that, in the past, but definitely is an area that we can grow up.
So hopefully this is a call for more participation, more collaboration. We have to end this panel. There are some other commercials coming, but I hope people can reach out. The information about your organizations have been going out during this panel. I know that, Karin, there's also a taller creativo literario happening this weekend. And Jennifer, all these opportunities with air monitoring sound great. So hopefully also from Concentro, we can collaborate and continue collaborating. I have had the chance and honor to collaborate with both of those organizations. Hopefully you can count on me as an ally and an accomplice. And thank you very much for joining me today, joining all the people here. Please connect later. Remember, there's an interview about agroecology. So thank you very, very much. This afternoon, we will have the documentary film Necessity, Climate Justice, and the Thin Green. Thank you very much for joining us today for this panel, and let's go for commercials.